For centuries, Viking structures stood in salt spray, frozen soil, and constant damp without collapsing into rot, and that reality should make any modern builder pause. This episode explores a wood preservation method used across Scandinavia that modern construction quietly abandoned. Not because it stopped working, but because it conflicted with industrial speed and chemical convenience. What the Vikings practiced was not guesswork or folklore. It was a deliberate material treatment that allowed ships, homes, bridges and harbour pilings to survive conditions that destroy many modern treated timbers within decades. Why Viking builders were obsessed with rot long before chemistry existed. The Viking world was defined by water. Ships were hauled onto beaches, houses sat on wet ground, and wharves were driven directly into tidal zones. Rot was not cosmetic damage, but structural failure that could strand a fleet or collapse a hull. Builders understood through observation that untreated wood failed quickly, yet certain pieces endured far longer. Over generations, this observation evolved into a consistent treatment process applied before wood ever became part of a structure. What the Viking rot-proof wood dip actually consisted of, well, that's quite fascinating. The method relied on immersing freshly cut wood into hot mixtures derived from pine tar, animal fats, ash lye, and sometimes iron-rich water. Pine tar was the dominant component, produced slowly from resin-heavy pine roots burned in low-oxygen pits. You know, this tar was not just painted on the surface as many folks assume. The wood was actually soaked or dipped while it was still green, which let the cellular structure really absorb the tar deeply. The lye and ash content, well, it actually altered the wood's internal chemistry, making it pretty hostile to fungi and bacteria. So the result wasn't just a coating, it was more like a transformation of the wood itself. Now, why did green wood matter more than the recipe itself? One of the most overlooked aspects of the Viking method is honestly timing. The wood was treated before it had a chance to dry. So green wood has these open capillaries that actually draw in liquids. When it's dipped into warm tar mixtures, the wood absorbs the preservative much deeper than dry timber ever could. As the wood dries out later on, the tar polymerizes inside the fibres. This seals them from moisture, but, still keeps the wood flexible. These days, modern builders usually apply preservatives to kiln-dried lumber, but that really limits how deep it can go. It just creates a shallow defensive layer, rather than offering the kind of long-term protection the Vikings achieved. So, here's the thing. This method actually outperformed modern pressure-treated lumber. You see, modern pressure-treated wood relies on waterborne chemicals, which are forced into the outer layers of dry lumber. Now, these treatments do work at first, but the chemicals tend to leach out over time, especially in, wet or marine environments. Viking-treated wood, though, well, it behaved quite differently. The tar really repelled water, slowed down oxygen penetration, and remarkably stayed stable for decades. Archaeological finds have shown Viking ship timbers and building posts still intact, even after centuries underground. In contrast, modern treated posts often rot at ground contact within 20 to 30 years. So, why did pine tar work where synthetic chemicals, often struggle? Pine tar contains natural phenols and resins that inhibit fungal growth while, also remaining hydrophobic. Unlike modern preservatives, it does not become brittle or chemically unstable with age. As temperatures fluctuate, the tar slowly migrates within the wood, resealing microcracks before water can enter. This self-healing behavior is something modern treatments cannot replicate. How Viking builders applied the method in real construction. Ship planks were dipped or brushed while warm, then stacked to cure slowly. House posts were soaked before being driven into the ground. In some regions, builders combined tar treatment with charring, creating an even more rot-resistant surface. This was not done once and forgotten. Periodic reheating and reapplication maintained performance. How modern builders and survivalists can apply this knowledge today? So, a practical modern application? Well, it starts with sourcing real pine tar, not those diluted substitutes you sometimes see. Fresh or air-dried wood should be warmed just a bit, to open up the fibres and get it ready for treatment. Heating the tar until it flows easily, that's the key. It allows for much deeper penetration into the wood. You can dip the wood, soak it, or even brush it on quite heavily, then just leave it to cure slowly in a well-ventilated space. For posts, treating only the section that'll be in contact with the ground already extends its lifespan dramatically. This approach is especially effective for garden structures, sheds, docks, raised beds and off-grid buildings. Anywhere, really, where long-term durability matters more than factory-made uniformity. So, why did this method disappear, even though it was so effective? Well, the Viking wood dip didn't vanish because it failed, that's for sure. Honestly, it disappeared because it was just too slow, a bit messy, and, it didn't really fit with the fast pace of industrialized building timelines. These days, modern construction is all about speed, standardization, and, that immediate, polished appearance. Pine tar, for example, darkens the wood, and, it needs time to cure. Those qualities just don't line up with modern aesthetics or the quick profit cycles that drive the industry today. Well, the knowledge faded not through disproof, but neglect. What this forgotten technique teaches about historical engineering is, quite remarkable. Viking builders, you see, designed for permanence in rather hostile environments, using renewable materials and a good bit of observational science. Their methods remind us that, honestly, effective engineering does not always require complexity. Sometimes all it takes is patience and a real understanding of the materials at hand. The rot-proof wood dip is not just some curiosity from the past. but a viable alternative that, interestingly enough, modern builders are only just beginning to rediscover. If you value historically grounded building knowledge that still outperforms modern shortcuts, do consider subscribing to In the Beginning and sharing this episode with fellow builders, historians, and survival-minded thinkers. This channel, after all, exists to recover practical wisdom that history never meant for us to lose.